All right, this is going to be episode 140 of Podcast PD. AJ and I are very excited for our guest tonight, and AJ is going to get this show kicked off. If you're joining us, whether it's Twitter, wherever I have this going out, YouTube, let us know in the chat. Leave a comment where you're coming to us from, and be a part of the show. All right, AJ, let's kick off 140.
Coming up on episode 140 of Podcast PD, we are bringing surprise every day with our guy, Tom Pichet. Here we go.
This is Podcast PD, the show that provides you with anytime, anywhere professional development. Our conversations and guests will provide you with the learning you might get in a faculty meeting or on a PD day. Except you're going to have more fun with AJ Bianco and me, Chris Nessie. Let's start the show.
What is going on, podcast people? Welcome to another episode of Podcast PD. My name is Chris Nessie, and I am joined as always by the podcast paisano, AJ Bianco. What's up, man?
Christopher, how are you? Hello, people out there. Thank you for joining us. Another episode of Podcast PD. Things are good. Things are good. We're in May. We're at the end of May.
You just said everything I said, but you sounded way more depressed. You okay?
I'm great. It's baseball season. The sun's shining. Yeah, man. Of course I'm okay. Come on.
I'm a little annoyed.
Why?
I'm a Knicks fan, and Game 7 didn't go the way I wanted it to. You don't even like basketball, so don't even make that face at me.
Right. So don't worry about it. So it didn't go the way you wanted to.
I still got hockey.
I was going to say. You got hockey, and the Yankees are hot. So
yes.
Just roll with it.
I'm rolling.
There we go.
Yeah. All right. Why don't you set up this episode? This is another fine guest get by you. So let's go.
Yeah. Look, so I was on social media recently, and if you remember anything about me, I'm a big fan of Jake Thompson from Compete Every Day in the podcast, and I usually go about sharing Jake's pieces of work and his inspirational conversations and his podcasts. And one day I got somebody reach out to me like, hey AJ, I'm a big fan of Jake Thompson myself. I'm an educator. He's a magician and a keynote speaker. And I'm like, all right, let's chat. So we are bringing to you, our people, educator Tom Pichet, who is a fantastic educator, and I'm actually interested in his magic. So here we go. I'm curious about this. So Podcast PD listeners, welcome our guy, Tom Pichet, to episode 140. What's up, Tom?
Wow. Thank you so much, guys. Hey, thanks for having me on. AJ, great to see you. Chris, great to meet you. And it's a thrill to be here. So yeah, definitely a fan of Jake Thompson. So cool that you know each other. And, we connected on all things leadership, education, and thrilled to be with you tonight. So let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So Tom, why don't you start? Why don't you tell everybody about what you do? You are a longtime educator, and you're in New York, correct?
I am. I teach in New York State. I live in Connecticut, and I have been teaching for 20 years. And, I came about the profession really through my parents. My dad is a school principal. He was a principal for 40 years in New York and Connecticut. My mom still is a music teacher, and her primary role was teaching us, right? So everything in our home and in my parents' lessons and in their schools was always filled with this element of surprise. It was like anything could happen at any moment, and you really never knew what you were stepping into, but yet everybody who was a part of it felt so connected. And the deal for me was that I would leave my school during the day, and if I had a day off that my dad was working, I got to go in with him. And a couple times throughout the year, I would do this, and I would go there, like literally, like following Walt Disney. If you ever seen those pictures of him, like walking the park, before it opens, or people would flock to him and stuff. And I had those images of my dad's heels down the hallway, and just all the stuff that would happen. And I would get back to my school, the next day, and be like, this is depressing. Like, what is going on here? And so it really instilled in me that you could break the norm. Nobody said it has to be this way. Nobody said desks have to be in rows. And when I thought about what profession I would do, there were a lot of different things that I entertained. And one of the things that I love is magic. I always had magic kind of in my life. I think a lot of us have this duality of different things that we love. I mean, Chris, you've got like the really cool podcast studio there, and then you've got like frilly curtains and the sewing machine, and so like there's all different things happening. AJ, like Teletubbies behind him. Is that a Cabbage Patch? Like what is happening in the background?
Dude, I don't even know. I don't even know what's back there.
But it's just we have these different lives, and I'm like, well, what if you could just bring all of you to something that you do? And I noticed that my friends who were going into accounting or law or doctors, a lot of those people had this like secondary life or this outlet, so to speak, that nobody knew about, like the lawyer who plays jazz, you know, or dreamt of being on stage, or the doctor who does the open mic night. And it was this dichotomy that was almost like juxtaposed but competing against each other. And I'm like, well, what if you brought all of that to what you did? And as much as I tried to resist it, I really felt like I was being called again and again into education because, well, here's the thing where you could literally bring it all like a director. I was the writer of the, you know, of the curriculum. I was the actor in it. I was the producer. I was the everything, right? And then you get this audience, and I started to see teaching is so much like a magic trick. The lesson plan is like a trick, which is really the whole arc of a story map, right? Or a plot map. So that was kind of the beginning of me sort of saying, okay, I'm not settling on teaching. I'm not just a teacher. I want to become a teacher, even though I can do a lot of other things. I think this is where like all of me is going to really be able to come out and actually help somebody else. And so it's because of my parents, and it's because I just felt like, hey, we've got to exercise all those parts of who we are. And here's one really cool vehicle to do it.
Tom, I am really on board with this idea that as an educator, it is to some degree a type of entertainment. You have obviously this magic and this sense of showmanship in the classroom, and we're going to get into. And I mean, the way I see it, you know, when I'm in the classroom, it's, you know, 5 days a week, 6 shows, 3 shows a day. And it's like a Vegas lounge act for me. But
Exactly. Exactly. Dude, and you know, when we talked about Jake Thompson, this is what speakers know. Like, they're delivering incredible information, but we honestly don't need somebody to give us information. I mean, we have that in our pocket, right? Your phone can pretty much tell you anything you need to know. We can access the information. There's schools right now that are doing away with teachers, and we all know about where AI is headed. But the fact of what we need us for is really to spark that curiosity. It's to be the stimulant, it's to be the catalyst to get people going. And when you talk about guys like Jake and you talk about these speakers, they know that they need to bring that entertainment piece to it. Otherwise you lose your audience. And Jake talks a lot about this competing, right? And that's a metaphor for anything we do in life. We're always competing. But he does it in a way where if you just see some of his material, you think that he's almost, you know, working for Nike or something. And you're like, wow, do you work with sports teams and sports groups? And he'll tell you, like, actually, no, one of my main clients is like mechanical contractors. You're like, oh, okay. But it's all this competition stuff because he's applying that. And we find that hook and we reach our audience. We meet our audience where they are. And then we become the coach. And I think Jake's idea of competing is so important because we're competing with ourselves. But we all need a coach. You need a coach in marriage. You need a coach in your hobbies. You need a coach in whatever you want to learn to do, because the word coach really comes from the word stagecoach. It's like, what did a stagecoach do? You know, you look at the Wells Fargo stagecoach, it took people from where they are to where they want to be. So that's my job. It's to take people from where they are to where they want to be. And I tell my kids, like, that's what I'm here for. So when I talk about surprise, I think that word is the word to kind of keep us relevant when you talk about us being outmoded or maybe AI or other things happening, because surprise stimulates curiosity, right? And curiosity is going to be that trigger to unlock what we didn't know. And even if we don't get to that point, like, that information isn't even what's important. That's secondary, but it's that curiosity. It's that will to want to dig it up. It's that will to want to find a way. It's that will to kind of say, how can I do this? And I think that's what we need to instill in our kids. And that's also what fights complacency and stagnant, you know, behavior. You know, what's next? Anything's possible. Let me just find a way to unlock it. So
now,
yeah.
You've got AJ and I, 2 grown adults, on the edge of our seats. Like, I'm leaning in. I'm into Tom right now. How do you do that day to day? You teach 6th grade English. How do you get the 6th grader in 2024 to be on the edge of their seat? And again, we're in a post-COVID world where we're competing with TikTok and Instagram and their cell phones and any number of other distractions. How do you get
Yeah.
your kids on the edge of their seats?
I'll tell you what I start with, and TikTok and Instagram and those things can't do this. And that is, I have a real care and interest in the students. I think when people know that their best interest is at heart, and when people feel love, that's what transcends all those other things, because all those other things are simply dopamine hits. Those things are going to get your attention and they're going to be the cheap hook. But when you're invested in something that truly matters, that's where you find value, right? Everything else is based on image. Titles are based on image, right? You can kind of be anything you want to be. You can appear to be anything you want to be, but that's going to fade. It's the value that sticks, and value is based on a belief system. So the number one thing I start with in my classroom is just the belief system. That has nothing to do with English. That has nothing to do with content. And I don't know how you feel as, teachers and administrators, and AJ's used an administrator, but especially in the upper grades, I find so many teachers kind of latch on to the content. This is their domain. This is their content. But my background was in elementary education. So we're kind of teaching all subjects. I started in first grade. I landed in fourth grade for 9 years. I taught sixth and seventh grade. I don't really care what it is that I teach, even though my background is in English as an English major and a literacy coach. But I am able to first tap into the student and say, look, if you know I love you and I care about you, and I'm going to be that coach to take you to this place, and we're going to find it together, and you can trust me, that supersedes everything else. Now all of a sudden you got that buy-in, and that's what people need in I think any job. It's that ability to say, not only do you care about me, but my opinion matters. I'm a part of the process, and wait, it's going to be fun. And I'm like, yeah, that's why I chose this job. It's not because I have to be here to I have to teach you this, guys. You got to know this about how to write an essay. I'm like, no, I chose a job for me too, because this lifestyle for me is how do you solve problems while having fun and helping other people? If you can do that as a career, you've got it figured out. And so when they realize whoa, this guy not only is here to help me, he's not only making sense. I not only now want to work for him, but he actually has this life that he shows up for every day that he wants to live. I think that's contagious. So I start that year with us being a family, and family, as the coach of the Minnesota football team taught me, means forget about me, FAM, I love you, right? ILY. And so we just define that right off the bat, and we say, look, this isn't about feeling good. This isn't about me. This isn't about what we want. It's about sacrifice. And we define sacrifice as love. It's giving up what something that you have for someone else, or it's giving up something for something you don't already have yet. And when you find those things that you want to work for, that's when the magic is unlocked. So that's kind of how I started. And then, okay, I'm in, right? Now what? And then we get to the content, and then we kind of approach each day with some more surprise.
Yeah, Tom, that's perfect, man. The content, the middle grades has to come later on, right? It's relationships first, especially as a sixth grade teacher, you know that. But I'm curious, I know you had your dad as a role model, mom as a role model, but when did you start noticing this change in what you bring to the classroom, right? You're 20-year vet now. I'm sure you didn't start like this right off the bat. There's no way you're just I'm walking in and bam, this is what I'm doing. At what point did you say to yourself,
I got a feeling he's going to say, yep, from day one.
No, because all of us had all of us had that moment. We all were like, nah, this is not what I can do. I need to shift how I teach. When did you have that moment?
When I wasn't having fun. Because if you're not having fun, this is when, and that's happened several times in my career. And because one day you're going to wake up and realize, I think in any job, that the money is going to not be the incentive. And we all know teachers, that's maybe.
I was going to say, wait a second.
Happens quicker than other professions. But so you're like, okay, well then I need fulfillment, right? Because that's what this is about. It's if you're going for that happiness, every day is going to be up and down, but that joy, that fulfillment, that's going to come from something else. And if I'm just teaching a curriculum, if I'm just doing somebody else's, this is what you have to do, you very quickly become burnt out. And that idea of going from being burnt out to being brilliant in the classroom, it came from this idea that I have to own it. And I couldn't be my dad. I couldn't be my mom. I couldn't be that teacher that, we've all been in those meetings when we were new teachers feeling overwhelmed, or the teachers we looked up to and we're like, oh my gosh, I have so far to go. How am I going to do this? Because there's no entry level teacher. You're in it. You're a teacher, right? There's no entry level administrator. I mean, maybe, right, an assistant, but those things you need to do in your job description, like you just need to do and be masterful at it. There's not a lot of forgiveness. So if you wind up hating it, I think you just get burnt so quickly that you find a way to say, okay, that's going to be palpable from my students. And I knew the teachers who hated their jobs and therefore probably hated their lives and therefore probably hated us. And it's like, if I can sense happiness in that teacher, I can get like this, there's purpose here. So I needed to right away change that. So if I'm teaching something, it's like, you know what I went to first? I was really into music for a while, and I just started writing songs with my students. I'm like, you know what, let's do this. And let's not only do the song for the curriculum, like let's film the process of it, and like, let's make a video. And then I got almost bitter later because this was in the early 2000s before social media. And right when I was like finally done creating like an album's worth of stuff and a documentary on all this, it just stayed in house. I see people like releasing songs and going viral and going on Ellen and all these things. And I'm like, why? I never did that. Why? I should have done that. So no one ever knew it happened, but I had a blast doing it. And I think you have to find that magic of like who you are. If it's music, lean into the music. If it's arts and crafts, lean into the arts and crafts. If it's writing, like, again, you have to be your authentic self, because authenticity and congruency is what people sense. And when there's a disconnect, that's when people are like, wait a minute, I don't know if I'm buying this. Think about salespeople. Think about, anybody, a doctor, anybody you're supposed to trust. When you look at their online life and they're in real life and you see that disconnect, you're like, something isn't right. And kids are the best at picking up on that. So I just had to be my authentic self and actually not only love what I was doing, but love the way I was doing it.
Now, Tom, when you were just talking about that, you mentioned that, I don't want to say getting lost, because you weren't lost, but you kind of felt uninspired. And you said that happened a couple of times in your career. What were some of the things you felt that helped you to recognize that? And if you've had to make a shift a couple of times, what are some of the things that you shifted to, and how did you know what direction to go in?
It's a great question. I'll tell you when it happened, because I think we're best equipped to help the person that we once were. And it was at the moment, probably about the biggest moment was about 10 years in. And you're at that point where you're kind of like, I'm now kind of plateauing at salary. I'm kind of like, I know what I'm doing. I've either figured it out and corrected things, or I've gotten the accolades and the praise for the good things. And like, now what? And I started looking around saying like, okay, I could probably have a lot of jobs for around $100,000 and make a living. But like, is this what I'm going to do? And before I tell you how I got back out of the bad place, here's what got me into the bad place. That phrase that no good deed goes unpunished, right? Because we don't get a raise for being better at teaching, or for putting in extra hours, or for putting in all that extra effort, what happened was you start to feel yourself, whether directly or indirectly, getting kind of dumped on, whether it's by administration, and I have a great district, but just by nature, like, hey, I'm getting all of the bigger cases. I'm getting all of the major, parent issues, because I know how to deal with them. I'm having parents, know that I put in that time and effort, taking advantage and having me, lock into conferences for, 40 minutes when it should have been 15 minutes. I'm just now what became like this higher level, and what I wanted to deliver becomes an expectation. And all of those things just become more and more demanding. And I started to lose relationships. Like, forget about teaching for a minute. I had a girlfriend for, 4 years. And I'm just like, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I don't have time for this. I'm like so dedicated to my job, but why am I pouring it all into this? And so you have this gut check moment where you're like, I've got to change something. And so for me, I think a lot of people think that change has to be either stepping away completely from education, or, AJ, I don't know what it's for you with when you went into administration, because I really thought my next step was administration. Like, okay, I've run this course. My dad's done this. I went and got my administrative degree. Let me go into that next step. And I remember the moment, it was right around that same year, the superintendent called me in and said, we'd like to offer you the assistant principal position. And I just kind of added some things up in my head, and I was like, will that really make me more fulfilled? And for me, when I did the gut check, the stuff that I really loved was still there. I just had to get rid of like that the other superfluous stuff around it that was bringing me down. And what I was able to do in my district, number one, was I was able to make a big change by going to a different school. I went up to the middle school. And I thought that, some people want to stay like comfortable in the grade that they're in so they can focus on the other things in your life. I appreciated the challenge when I was almost like just swimming in it to be like, you know what, let's go for a totally different change. And people thought I was nuts, but going to that middle school and having that just whole different change in the day and the schedule and the age, that was magic for me because it was invigorating. It felt like a career change of scenery, like literally sometimes I just would take a different route to school just to change it up. And that in itself is helpful. But the last thing is that I do on a yearly basis is I really take ownership and stock and be like, okay, this is my year. I'm my own boss. And the reason I decided to stay where I am is because I don't have a supervisor breathing down my neck every day. Not everybody's that fortunate. Some people, maybe you have a principal, they check your lesson plans every day. I don't. So I'm like, I get to be my own boss. What do I want to do in my room? And I want to own it. And I have to reaffirm that every year. And there's been years where I just kind of like pushed through, started the year, and I would find myself mentally, I got caught up in it. And I'm like, now I'm just going through the motion. I have to stop and be like, is this my classroom? I'm owning it. This is what I want to do. And then again, make those great relationships, not just with your kids, but also with the people you work with. So, I think, and if I could just add this last piece in there, when I was in my 20s, it was all about like pleasing my administration, pleasing the parents, doing my best for that. And I kind of plowed through. As I got older, I was like, wait a minute. All those people usually cycle through in your career a few times. The people you're left with forever are your colleagues, are your fellow teachers. So I really realized, hey, these relationships are so important. Let me find the great ones that are going to help build me up and not just be the complainers in the faculty room, but like those I can really trust and latch onto, and like, let me make my little core team. And that's been amazing.
Yeah, Tom, I appreciate that because there was times where I was bored and unhappy, and I thought the move was to just get out of the classroom. Like there was so many times I sat there and said to myself, I've done this, I've lived it. I'm done. It's time to make an impact elsewhere. But I appreciate what you're saying here, that, you're finding your moments and you're finding your happiness. And that's great. I should have, you look at where I am now, I should have thought of that other thing years ago, but I didn't. And here we are. Did your dad ever say to you like, hey, you really should think about the principalship since he lived it for so long? Did he ever push you in that direction, or did he just say, you be you and you continue to dominate what you're doing?
Yeah, no, in the best possible way. I think my dad wanted to see me do that because you think that it's the matriculation. It's like, well, if I'm here, like, I can't just see myself sitting on the carpet in 20 years. That's like, I've got to go up. And so it was really that like discernment where I had to be like, again, what do I want? And once I articulated that to my dad, of course, both my parents totally embraced it and realized like, yes, that's exactly what you should do. Because I also found this balance in my life that I needed. And that what I needed was this other avenue to pursue in magic, which still comes into my teaching world so much, it overlaps. But I love being able to have this other time, whether it's after school, breaks, summers, all of that, where I can go out and I can speak to, school districts, universities, companies. I can present, I can perform, and I'm, again, fulfilling all of that of who I am. And I realized that for me, and at this point in my life, that's something that's really rewarding rather than more of a one path. If I go to this next job and it's 12 months a year, it's going to limit and curtail those things that I know I'm doing on the side also. And so at that point, it was just something where this is where I can see that fulfillment really being met. But yeah, it was a big, you have to really be confident in who you are, I think, to take that step, because again, you have all the ability to be anything and everything. I have all the credentials to be a superintendent, and I'm choosing to be an elementary school teacher. But I'm okay going into the cocktail parties and telling people, what do you do? I'm so proud to be like, I'm not just a teacher, I'm a teacher. And I think that we need more proud credentialed. I could do anything and everything in the world, and I still choose this because. And it's finding that because that makes all the difference.
I like that. All right. We did the education stuff. You brought it up now. Let's talk about the magic, man. Tell us how the magic started and why you decided like this should be a focus for my classroom and your keynotes.
Well, the magic is something that I got hooked on early. My cousin did it. Rich Albano, amazing magician, and we would go to parties, family parties and stuff. He'd be doing this, and it got my interest. It got me hooked. And but the real thing was we went to Boston one summer as my family, and a good friend of mine, another speaker and amazing performer, check him out, Jeff Savilico. He just did a TEDx talk. And the crazy thing is, like, he does this talk, and his story, his origin story, is literally my exact same story. He's with his family, same age, in Boston. There's a street performer. For him, it was a guy named Peter Panic. He was a juggler. For me, it was a street magician whom I've never found out the name of this guy. I don't know who it was, but my sister got chosen. I watched this happen. I was so enamored by it. And there happened to be a magic shop called Hinckley's Magic Factory. It's no longer there. In Boston, we went, they showed me a trick. I bought it. They taught me how to do it. I was hooked. This was pre-internet, pre-YouTube. You bought it from a catalog, later, and you just read, and I would read every night and do this stuff. I was shy in middle school. This is what got me out of my shell. I was like, I love the feeling this brings. I got this reaction and I saw people change. And I was like, this is so cool. I can tell any story using magic. And so the power of story is everything. If you can have an accelerator for that story and something indelible that stays with people, hey, all the better, right? So magic was that vehicle for me, and it still is. So anytime I can use it. In fact, guys, I don't know if we can do something now. Could we? Would you like?
Yes.
Are we cool to do?
Yes.
Would that be all right?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, man. Let's go.
I mean, I don't mean to go on a tangent, but I'm just like, this is how it kind of works. Do you have either of you have a phone with you? Could you take out? You have an iPhone with you?
You got to
Chris,
do that,
maybe?
AJ.
AJ, you got it? Okay.
Got it.
AJ, open your iPhone. Here's what we're going to do, because this is going to be something that obviously your viewers, listeners can watch happen. I can't see you. We're in different locations. I think you're in New Jersey. I'm in Connecticut. Open your phone. And I learned this during COVID with my own daughters, right? I've got 3 beautiful girls at home. The 4th one's so-so. But no, they're all beautiful. There's only 3. But we're online so much, right? They're doing all their work where I'm teaching online. It was crazy. And I realized anything kids are looking up doesn't necessarily mean it's true. So I started to track how much new stuff is going out there on Wikipedia, Google, during this time. They literally keep track. There's a tracker. AJ, you're going to look it up to the minute right now for us on Wikipedia, for example. Go to your browser, if you don't mind, if you're in Safari on your phone.
Yep.
Go on your phone and just put in www, and I think it's wikicount.net, W-I-K-I, wikicount.net. And if you go there, it'll tell you how many articles are in English, how many words per article, literally to the day or to the hour or to the minute. Are you there?
I'm at the website. It says Wikipedia English article count.
Yeah. How many articles in English?
There are approximately 6,825,446.
Okay, it's a lot, right? And if you look at how many words per article underneath it, how many words per article are there?
2,673.
2,673. So if you think about that, right? If you multiply that times how many articles there are, I don't know, hundreds of millions. I'm an English teacher, not a math teacher.
Yeah,
but here's where it gets wild, okay? I'm going to just kind of connect with you the best I can across our minds. Go underneath those however many they tallied up there, and go into Wikipedia. Do you see the link? You can just click it, go into Wikipedia there.
All right,
I want you to go in, and you're going to do this, okay? I want you to just search up anything that we would all recognize, but don't tell us what it is, okay? So go in, search up anything you want in the little magnifying glass, search it. And when you do, just scroll through the article and pick out a word. Pick out a big word, okay?
A big word. Okay.
A big word. I mean, don't make it easy because or the.
I
pick
got
out a
you.
substantial, big, large word. You got just the first one that you come to is fine. Or scroll through towards the middle, the end, doesn't matter. Just tell me when you've got one. You got a big word?
Yeah, let's. I got a word.
Keep it in your mind. Keep it in your mind.
Okay.
And I want you to focus on the word. I'm going to use this like my own analog Google search screen, blank, and I'm going to try to read your mind. So, but it's not really reading your mind, because if I could tune into how many words there are per article and what you might be thinking of, just give me the first letter of the word that you're thinking of.
R.
Okay. Just think about that for a minute, and I want you to focus on it. And go in your mind, just say the word, but don't say it out loud. Just say the word. I'm going to look at your eyes. And he's nodding. He's nodding. Okay. Are there 4 syllables in that word?
Yes.
That's crazy. Okay. Do me one more favor. All I know is this so far. Go to the end of the word. Look at the last letter. And count 1, 2, 3 out loud.
1, 2, 3.
He went down on the 3. That's a consonant, not a vowel. I think it's a T or an L or a D. Look at me. Open your eyes. It's a D. And then I'm on the right track. Okay, cool. And then just look in the middle of the word and pick out a letter somewhere in the middle of the word.
Okay.
Did you change your mind from like an O to an M? Are you thinking of an M somewhere in it?
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, there's a lot to choose from here. I'm just going to go with kind of what I think. What is the word that you're thinking of?
Recommend.
That's kind of
Oh
crazy.
my God.
Yeah. Did we hit that? Because if this is audio, people are going to have no idea that thing just fell over.
Yes.
Is this?
No.
It's literally what I wrote, right? Okay. But
that was.
But I want to go one step further, because Chris, you have no idea what AJ is looking at. I don't know. You're not in his house, are you? Are you together in the same house?
No, unfortunately.
No. Okay, so we're nowhere. Let's just go into your mind. Don't even worry about the words, because I could, that could be some kind of a algorithm for how many words come up in articles most often. But I want you to think about the only thing that you know right now, which is literally the topic you're thinking of. The topic that you're thinking of that you may have looked up, and just look at me. And I feel like I'm already getting this. I think it's like a place. And I usually get this right once I connect on the word. And I think it's a place, and I'm sensing it's warm. Am I on the right track?
No.
No? AJ, you still with me?
I'm with you. Yeah, I got you.
Okay, you're thinking of your word, AJ?
The same word? Or you want to think of something different?
Yeah, no. What you looked up. This is you, AJ. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And it's not a place, and it's not warm.
Oh, wait, were you talking to him or me?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, Chris. I'm just confirming that you can't know what he sees or anything like that. But
he has no idea.
Okay.
He's got no idea.
AJ,
He's got no idea.
It's the word you're thinking, but I might be off. This is live, and I'm sorry if I'm messing this up. But I think I am right, though. I am, because for you, it is a place. It's literally like a state of being. Like everything about you exudes this thing or this place that you want to be, because for you, it's an entity more than a place. And I think it's going to be hot this year. What is the topic, word, or thought in your mind? AJ?
Yeah. Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking of the Yankees.
Oh, thank God, because I was definitely thinking the Yankees, man. That's crazy. Good night, everybody. Thank you. Yeah, that is a wrap.
I was thinking of the same thing too.
No. Oh my God.
Dude, see, that's the thing, right? Like once you get to know your students, it's almost like connecting those dots. It's like being married for a while. You can complete that sentence, but it's really connecting on that level that I think earns the trust. And it's not only that, but it's the surprise. It's like they've literally done studies that magicians, when people go to see a magician, if you say, I'm going to make somebody float, that's really cool. But it's when they thought that the magician was on stage and it wasn't just cool that he disappeared, but when they then see the magician in the back of the room and they never saw that coming, it's that second step, that element of surprise that just completely captures the audience. That's the number one thing that people have said that they yearn for, they love, and they react to in the show. And I said, well, if that's true for magic, it's got to be true for learning. And again, it's that unlocking of the curiosity to get us to the point of knowing what we don't know, like that you were thinking of the Yankees.
I don't even know where to go with this.
Two things. When you had him look something up, I was like, all right, let me play along over here. I wound up on the Wikipedia page for baseball.
Crazy.
But now,
And by the way, I am not a baseball fan. It's about you. It's not about me. Okay. I would have definitely gone with Formula One racing, something like that. And wouldn't have gone baseball, but this is about you, not me. And that makes all the difference.
my second thing, how the hell you do this with Shakespeare?
He's easy. Are you kidding me?
Oh, man.
That was dope. I don't even know what to say right now.
All right,
Thank you,
Tom,
guys.
that was very
That
cool.
was fun.
That was very cool.
You were a quick read, though. I appreciate it.
He's an easy read, too.
That's true.
Tom, I also like the dark arts. I'm more into card magic myself. I have like this huge bicycle card deck collection. You know, I'm in Target, Walmart, whatever. I'm always buying cards. I like card magic. I'm not going to ask you to do card magic here on the show because that really doesn't translate into an audio podcast. But what type of magic do you really get into and really excites you?
I think it's the stuff that is personal to other people. Like literally that trick had nothing to do with me, right? So if I just say, guys, watch this, I'm gonna do something so cool for you. You're gonna be, oh my God, Tom is so great. Like, look what he can do. But I never want people walking away thinking, look what he can do, right? I want it to be you thinking like that was about me. Like, how did he get to me? And now I feel something. And not to sound sappy, but like, again, that's how we want to have our students feel. It's something that's, I didn't just pass my teacher's test. I didn't just write that essay to get graded. Like I produced something that caused or affected change in others. I did something that I'm proud of, and that my teacher helped pull out of me and get me to and appreciated me. But I didn't even know was there. And so that's like when you leave feeling like that was something that you helped do, that's crazy. So yeah, I do love the mentalism. But I personally I love stuff that happens up close because it does away with the smoke and mirrors and all that other stuff. It's like you just are seeing that and feeling that in your hands. That's pretty incredible. But for me, there's just nothing like performing in front of a large group. It's some people's greatest fear. And I do a lot of this with my students to make sure that they feel comfortable in front of large groups. But I just love speaking to school districts. I love sharing, that vulnerability with who I am. If I'm nervous, I share it. If I, had a setback, like I share it. I think it's when we're not afraid to show that really makes all the difference. And those people who don't want to show it, you just you can sense it. It's just, again, it's not that genuine leadership that, I want to exude. And so I love hosting and being on a big stage. It's just so cool.
You just talked about, the pride that you feel. This is also the time of year where AJ and I tend to get a little more reflective about the school year that was as we try to kind of move into the summer and, we think about the future. To get you a little reflective, what are you most proud of that you've accomplished or you've helped your students do here in the 23-24 school year?
This year, I would say it is really about their confidence and a unit that we're currently heading into right now where they are debating and they are arguing for something. So to give you a little recap, it's usually the piece that they do to persuade others that I really love, and I do it with them. So they've written to senators, they've written to mayors, they've written to celebrities, they've written to whoever, but it's like seeing something that for the benefit of others, they're trying to affect some positive change and they get a response. And so what I want to instill in my students is that nothing is too big. Like if there's a plan that you have, we have to put it in place and we have to put it in action. If there's somebody you want to reach, when I was young, that seemed impossible. I think we wrote a letter to the president once as a class, and we got some form thing back, and it was cool. But yeah, the president probably didn't really read it. Now it's like they found a way, no matter who it was, to get to a person, and you can do that now on social media. The way AJ and I connected, the way we have mutual friends, the way like you can connect with anybody. And I think a lot of us are just held back because we think, well, that's not me, that's not possible. And to instill in my kids like this is possible. Why not? If I thought about doing this incredible thing, like why not just ask somebody how you did that? And all of a sudden I have an internship, or that person invited me out. I saw this coach like Jake Thompson, and he was just so inspiring. And I'm like, we should just write to him. My kids are like, who would you write to, Mr. Pache? I said, PJ Fleck, the head coach of Minnesota football. And I did. And I was like, I would love to go speak to your team, give a keynote, and show you some magic. I think I could pump you up. Sure enough, I did it. I didn't get to him, but I got to his wife. And his wife was like, Tom, I showed PJ your videos that are on YouTube. He wants to have you out. My kids almost fell off their seat. And lo and behold, we're like, FaceTiming with him. He's sending him stuff. We've got this whole thing. I'm flying out there in the summer. And we made this thing happen. We presented it to the board. So literally from like 0 to 60, you want to write a book? You can do it. And I think now more than ever, kids see that that's possible. And so this year, we had those moments where kids reached out. They did those kind of activities, and they were so shocked that they got the response. So that's my advice. Go for it. Make the connection.
I love it.
All right, Tom. You had the classroom, right? Let me just go through some of your speakers. So you spoke to Morgan Stanley, NASA, Amazon, Google, NBC, Deloitte, NASDAQ, Formula One. The list goes on and on. With all that and your classroom, what's next for Tom Pache?
What's next for me is actually diving back into education in a bigger way, because I've worked for probably in magic, 30 years, teaching 20 years, but I really doubled down about the past 6 years in the corporate space of magic. And I've almost hid my teaching life from the corporate world, because I would go on these stages and host for all those companies you just said, and present and do shows and even speak. And I didn't want them thinking that I was going back to a 4th grade or a 6th grade classroom on Monday, sitting on the carpet. I will say that felt like it didn't fit with the image. And then I would hide what I was doing in the corporate world from my teaching, because it's like, let's just get back to teaching, and I don't want them to muddy the waters. And now I'm finally saying, you know what, again, I need to get back into embracing who I am. I want to combine both of them. What has 20 years in the classroom, being able to walk the walk and talk the talk, combined with serving some of the top Fortune 500 companies in the world, taught me, I think I actually have something even bigger now to share with educators. So my goal is to really get into as many school districts as possible to help train, educate, and entertain teachers, to pump them up, because I have gone through all of those phases of doubt and denial and regret and reaffirmation with my wife, who is also a teacher. And I just keep meeting so many teachers who also, ironically, marry other teachers in many cases, but if not, at least have gone through those same feelings. And I'm like, again, who am I better able to help than the person that I once was? And I see that 22-year-old, 26-year-old, 36-year-old kid coming up, and I'm like, I think I can help them. And I think I know what your staff is feeling better than that motivational speaker who came in but has some other career, or better than that really smart, doctoral speaker who just is giving the information but isn't forgetting the fun and the enthusiasm. And I would love to light this staff on fire. And so my goal is to reach as many teachers, or really as many students through teachers and through administrators as possible in the coming year.
And when are you going to launch the podcast that does this?
Well, this is the live stuff. I mean, I want to be in person doing that, but and so we have a few schools already launched for late spring and throughout the summer, and I'm going to be joining this incredible organization called Teach Your Heart Out, and we are going to be doing PD at Sea, where I'm hosting this entire conference at sea with some of the greatest speakers in the world, not just education, but speakers. We've got Eric Thomas, we've got all these incredible educators, people from just all over the world, and I'm just so pumped. So we're hosting some conferences, doing some keynotes, doing some magic, and going to continue that. But yeah, my wife and I are also going to hopefully start that podcast, but I think it's going to be even bigger than education. So look for that.
I love it. Now, his website is tompesce.com. That's TOMPESCE.com. And that will, of course, be in the show notes at podcastpd.com/140, or it is a swipe or a tap away in the app that you are listening to right now. So make sure you hit up Tom through his website. And Tom, how can our listeners connect with you? Again, we've got teachers, we've got administrators, they want to bring you to their district, their school, or they just want to connect with you. Obviously, the website's a great way, but how else can they connect?
Yeah, I would love it. Instagram, LinkedIn, it's at Tom Pesce Official. You can just put in my name. I will come up. It's Pesce, like fish in Italian. Tom Pesce Official. And, that's where you'll see everything up to date. And again, it's this weird thing. I never posted anything about teaching. And just recently I started, because it was all my corporate magic stuff. One day you'll see me in the classroom. Maybe I'm juggling the different parts of an essay. Maybe I'm, doing something the other day with a ventriloquist dummy and celebrating something with the kids, or I'm connecting with other speaker friends and performer friends. And my students just watched Jeff Savilico do his TEDx. We did this whole thing with him and this lesson, and then we got him on a FaceTime call, and he called in, and they were like, what? It's a real person. So we get to do that with guys like Clint Pulver and other just extraordinary performers, educators, authors, speakers, and it's a really cool thing. So keep up to date on there. It's changing every day, and I try to post as often as possible. Tom Pesce Official.
Excellent. I have a couple of questions, again, with the magic. Who is your biggest inspiration as a magician?
Ooh, as a magician, well, I'd say that's a hard one. My inspirations really lie sometimes outside of magic. Walt Disney, Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, like these people who were trailblazers, but just incredibly obsessed. And I think with what they were doing, they were trying to create something that, again, really tapped into that emotion. So if I can do something that's not even necessarily magic, but it's emotional and it makes that connection, I love that. I love infiltrating the camp with like the unorthodox. So for example, in my, I know I digress for a second, but in my corporate show, I do a thing with ventriloquism with a CEO or somebody else in the audience. And all of a sudden they're doing this whole bit talking, and it's just comedy and ventriloquism. And it's one of the highlights of the show. I mean, people are literally crying like in the aisles. I had the president of Citizens Bank tell me this year he never has hired back an act twice in a row for their conference. And it was the top like 2 or 3 funniest things he's ever saw in his life. So he hired me back this past year in California for that. So that is just something that, never thought I'd even be doing, but I'm like, hey, I'm seeing the potential here. Let's run with it. So people like that, I've always loved. And as far as magicians, there's a guy named Jorge Blas who's incredible from Spain. There's Mario, the Maker Magician, is really near and dear to my heart because he is all about, do what you love, use what you have. And he does it in such a creative way that, again, he's not afraid to say, I'm a kid's magician. And this guy taps into his love of just all of the theatrics of it and just love it. Like at the end of the day, we're all kids, right? And I think there's nothing more honorable than teaching and performing for children. So he does that with just such a degree of finesse and humor and comedy and dignity that brings the whole room together. I would highly recommend checking him out. He's great. And my other love is street magic. When I saw in Boston, it's following these guys. And I went back and said, look, if I'm going to do this, I have to be able to do it at the most organic level, which is getting an audience to stop in their tracks on the street. And I just went down to Clearwater Beach and I asked the guys down there. There's this incredible group run by Dallas Soup, and he's a fire eater, juggler. And just these guys are some of the best in the business. Wacky Chad and all these guys that go down there, and they let me perform there for spring break, their busiest time. And it's like a lottery to get on that strip there. And I was terrible the first few nights. By the last night, I had a group of like 250 people. It was just the feeling like nothing else in the world. And I was like, if I can do that, it's like in New York. If you can make it here, baby, you can make it anywhere. I did it. And I'm like, this is so inspiring. So it's some of the unsung heroes and unnamed magicians that nobody's ever heard of that I think are just doing the work. And it's really inspiring.
And I want to be respectful of your time, but I've got more, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
You've done obviously some of these, corporate gigs, right? You've spoken to some of these high profile people, these companies. Is there a particular company you would love to perform for, or maybe someplace in the world you'd love to perform that you've not yet performed at?
Well, I was close to going to Dubai. I'd like to still make it to Dubai. I think that would be really, really cool. But yeah, and I think we have some plans for Europe, which would be great. Maybe the end of this summer, if not next year. So I just love reaching more people and just seeing how connected we really are. During COVID, I did so many virtual shows, and some reached companies that were in like every country imaginable, different time zones, and that was such a thrill because I never thought I would be doing that. But yeah, I like to find companies that I'm a good match for. I don't think it's like just Rolex because it's got a great name. I've always been that person and that educator as well to be like, I'm not for everybody, but if I'm a match for you, it's going to be a really incredible thing. And so I seek out those companies and those school districts and those individuals who they say, yeah, that's what I need. And I think I generally gel very quickly with a client, and it doesn't matter if it's a big name, a little name. It's just having that, those core beliefs that we want to do something really incredible together for people and the relationships within that group and the culture within that group. Because honestly, 53% of Americans right now, according to Gallup, are unhappy at work. And so much of that has to do with culture. So a key role that I see myself playing is, how do I establish culture for others, and how do I leave them with something lasting and a core belief system that they can instill in whoever is in their organization and actually want to carry that banner. So yeah.
That's all you got, Chris? You got nothing else?
Now we're friends. I'll reach out to him.
Right. Yeah. No.
Totally. Please. Oh my gosh, this is so great. And now I want to do the whole interview about you guys. So can I ask you one quick question that I think correlates, and your listeners probably want to know, and I'm sure you've talked about this on other episodes, but Chris and AJ, what is it about where you are now that both fulfills you, but if you could also give us the flip side of that, like what's the greatest challenge? I know, Chris, you said you've been in education about 15 years. AJ, you made the leap to administration. Like, what's the thing that weighs you down the most, and what's the thing that's filling you up the most?
For me, what weighs me down still, and it's been every day of my career, is the things that are out of my control that frustrate me as a teacher. I'm a high school history teacher, and there is always those things that, like, I come up with these great ideas and would love to try some different things in the classroom, and there's always still this thing I don't see that administrators see, or people that are higher up in the hierarchy see or think about, and that's a pain point that I would love to do some things, but it's just like red tape.
I hear you. And what fulfills you the most?
Podcasting and seeing my kids create, and seeing those light bulb moments, whether it's, what I see in the high school classroom, or I do some college work too. And, when I see kids mature and get it and achieve their goals, there's no greater feeling, because
so cool.
Maybe I played a small part in it.
You did, for sure. Do you podcast with your students? Do you run a podcast with them?
Oh, yes, I do. Yeah. I run the podcast club. We do a daily show every day.
Amazing.
I'm always trying to encourage kids to get behind the microphone and, do this in some way.
Oh my gosh, I love it. All right, you got another student right here. I'm going to be reaching out.
I'm here for you. Everybody should do it. Everybody should try it, and everybody can.
Fantastic. What about you, AJ?
Loves that. Oh, man, my biggest challenge is always like personal challenges, right? It's always me not feeling like I've done enough to make the change necessary in my school for my students and my staff. So it's always like that self-doubt, and that I want to do more, and it always just sits on me like I should have done this and I didn't do this, and I should have made that connection, I didn't do that. So it's always like that moment of, how are we going to push things forward? And it's very hard to always want to do that, because you can't always push things forward. And I'm learning that, but it still weighs heavy on me because I want that,
Totally.
But on the flip, the thing that always drives me is the students, right? So I got into this job. I love the fact that my students continue to come to me, and they want to build relationships. They want to talk. They want to ask questions. I don't think when I was a kid, I would ever talk to my administration about anything. And the fact that my kids want to talk to me about sports, about movies, about things that they're doing outside of school, it drives me every day.
So for whatever weight there was in anything I said, you both exemplify anything positive that came out of it, because the student-centric statements that you just made are so just representative of who you are. And the fact that you're not ever satisfied, it's like, if I was ever satisfied with a show, it'd be like, well, then I'm just, I'm waiting to be replaced, basically, because I've become way too comfortable. I leave every lesson, every show, every meeting being like, whoa, why did I do that? Why did I say, oh, what can I do next? How can I change? And it's just like constantly, we just have to all not be so hard on ourselves, because that's who we are, but it shows how much you care. So it's like, I'm honored to be here in front of both of you, because I could tell you are doing the right thing for the right reasons and in the right place. So lucky students.
Thank you, man. Pleasure is ours. You were fantastic in this episode. We really appreciate everything you brought to our listeners.
Oh, thank you so much, man. Thank you for having me on and allowing me to be here. This is a blast.
And, for you, the listener who is only listening to the audio side, you've got to go to the YouTube channel, go to podcastpd.com/YouTube, check out the video for this episode, and you can see what Tom did with reading AJ's mind and blowing us away. And, man, Tom, thank you for coming on. Again, his website is tompichet.com. It will be in the show notes, and it's a swipe or a tap away where you're listening.
And leave in the comments, if you go to the video, exactly 1 or 2 board games that AJ has in the background. And if you could name the baby doll that is on his right shoulder behind it. I think it's I can't even tell what it is, but.
We're trying to clean out the basement. I don't even know what is over there. Hold up. We got some Pokemon back there. We got a chessboard back there somewhere.
I think I've got half the same stuff here. If you look like just off camera to the right, there's like an entire Calico Critter village. So I've got all girls, and then you got boys. So like, if you know Calico Critters, any listeners out there, like put in the comments if you know Calico Critters. These little, Caroline's got like hundreds of them on the floor. And it's cute because they cost like $15 each. So we've hand-me-downs, but when she wants a new pack, it's like, okay, we got to save up.
Play with those first. Yeah.
Exactly.
Kids. All right. AJ, we'll be back at the end of June.
Wow. Look at us.
Flying high here at the end of the school year. Good stuff. Get us your thoughts and feedback on conversations like we just had with Tom. You can email us, feedback@podcastpd.com, or you can send us a voice message. Go to podcastpd.com/feedback. And we will be back on the last Sunday of June. I believe that is June 23rd.
I don't know. Sure.
June 23rd sounds like a good one. And we'll be back with another edition of Podcast PD. Tom, thank you so much once again. We really appreciate your time tonight.
Guys, thank you. It was an honor. Appreciate it.
Thank you, buddy.